On the last episode of the Keepsake box. I watched Tasha dance from the bleachers. While usually fairly shy, it turned out that Tasha was a really good dancer. I imagined myself attempting to dance like Tasha, and I knew that I would look awkward. I had to suck it up and watch her do something that was unattainable for me, and I've always hated that feeling. Things went from bad to worse when some of the kids formed a circle around Tasha. She danced to the beat as the kids started chanting, "Go Tasha, go Tasha." I wanted to look excited for her. Really, I did. But I wasn't, and I couldn't even fake it. As if that night needed to get worse, Toya Boone walked over with two of her friends. Initially, they pretended as if they genuinely wanted to have a conversation with me. "Let me ask you a question," said Toya. "Did someone tell you that this was a costume party?" "No," I exclaimed. "Well, why did you come dressed as a rooster?" she asked. I realized in that moment that she was making a joke in reference to my ruffled shirt. Before I could be appropriately offended, one of her friends chimed in. "A rooster mixed with a chia pet," she said. I didn't catch the reference, but she started patting my hair as they all laughed. Always careful not to show my level of offense, I simply got up and walked away. There was no way that I was going to let them see the tears forming in my eyes. Chapter 8, Trip Downtown. Narrated by Shandora Warren. Music by Epidemic Sound. I woke the next morning feeling more rested than I had in months. I looked at the clock on my nightstand. 9 o'clock. How had I managed to sleep until 9 o'clock? I experienced a moment of panic, as I was usually up by 7 o'clock to make breakfast. Since I was already late, I decided to go ahead and take a shower. I wanted to avoid the confrontation for as long as I possibly could. I got dressed and exited my bedroom, prepared to face the music. Walking slowly down the hallway, I made my way into the kitchen. Ron was sitting at the table drinking his coffee and reading the newspaper, per his usual routine. I expected Ron to tell me to go back into my bedroom to take my clothes off. In our household, that phrase was universally understood as spanking time. Instead, he smiled and said, "I thought you were going to sleep all day." I was flabbergasted. I smiled back and told him that I was extremely tired. Truthfully, I hadn't been able to sleep in since Mom and Ron had gotten married. I was surprised that I had been allowed to do so on that day. Immediately, I went to the refrigerator to take something out for breakfast. "I was thinking," said Ron, "how would you like to go out for breakfast this morning?" "Go out for breakfast?" Saturday was usually my day to power clean the house. Additionally, eating out was a rare occurrence for us. Seeming to read my mind, Ron said, "You clean every day. Missing one Saturday won't hurt." I hadn't ever been so happy to agree with him. We jumped into Ron's truck and headed downtown. I was excited. We never really went downtown unless we were going to the grocery store. Ron turned up the volume on the radio. To my surprise, rap music was playing on the station. He looked at me with the expression of an embarrassed schoolboy. "Don't tell your mother," he said. He smiled, and I smiled back. Ron started mouthing the words to the song, verbatim. He looked cool, like the guys that lean back in their seats while driving. We arrived at the restaurant, and I opened my door. "Wait," said Ron. "Close the door." I did as I was told. He walked around to my side and opened the door. "Remember," he said, "when you start dating, any respectable boy will open your door." Ron took my hand and helped me out of the truck. We walked towards the restaurant, and he opened the door when we reached our destination. The waiter escorted us to a table towards the back. Ron pulled out a chair and motioned for me to take a seat. He ordered omelets and orange juice for both of us. I know it sounds crazy, but it felt as though we were on a date. The experience was reminiscent of the couples I saw on television, and I liked that. We talked and laughed throughout breakfast, and I thought about how I wanted my future boyfriend to be just like Ron. Present day, I realized that many of them were. We left the restaurant. Ron, again, opened all of the doors for me. It's unfortunate that impressing me was that easy. Ron turned on the ignition and drove in the opposite direction of the house. "Where are we going?" I asked. He told me that I would see when we got there. I stared out of the window and took in the sights. We lived on the outskirts of town. There were no storefronts and buzzing shoppers, only a local market. I thought about how it would feel to live downtown. I imagined drinking coffee and eating Danish pastries, even though I was in middle school. Ron decelerated and pulled into a parking space. I was still unaware of our destination, as there were several stores on both sides of the street. I reached for the door handle. Ron glanced over to me, reminding me of the responsibilities of a gentleman caller. He opened my door and held my hand as we crossed the street. When Ron opened the next door, I realized that we were entering into a salon. In all the years that I had been alive, I hadn't ever been inside of an actual salon. Just being there made me feel fancy. One of the stylists approached Ron and gave him a light hug. It was the type of hug that strangers gave each other during a meet and greet at church. "So this is the daughter," she said. The stylist extended her hand, and I instinctively shook it. She told me to have a seat, and I did as I was told. She and Ron went to the back of the salon, and they exited a few moments later. Ron told me that the lady would take care of me, and he exited the salon. The stylist introduced herself as Sharon. I couldn't have imagined the role that she would end up playing in my life. Sharon started pumping the chair up with a lever that was located at the bottom. She retrieved an afro comb from the top drawer. One of the other stylists commented that she would need a bigger comb, and the other stylist started laughing. Ron was wrong when he said that people grew out of those things. Present day, I'm still confused about why adults find it completely acceptable to speak negatively about children in their faces. I was saddened and offended by their behavior, but 12-year-old Shelonda wouldn't ever have said so. Sharon parted my hair. I smelled the familiar scent of relaxer, and I was relieved. Prior to that moment, I was concerned that Ron had told her to give me some slave plats. Sharon chatted me up and made me feel very comfortable. I didn't experience the awkwardness that I usually felt around strangers, but she asked a lot of questions, personal questions. Grandma always advised me against asking too many questions. She said that people would tell me things if they wanted me to know them. I guess Sharon's grandma hadn't ever told her that. Or maybe she thought I wanted to tell her things. I studied Sharon's face as she washed my hair. She was very pretty and fairly young. She looked to be maybe 18 or 19. Sharon was dark like me, and she had a spunky short haircut. She reminded me of Nia Long, but she was a little darker. I wondered if she worried about guys not liking her because of the color of her skin. She seemed so secure and comfortable. I secretly wished I had her confidence. After the wash, Sharon rolled my hair and put me under a hooded dryer. I started to get a little nervous. Grandma and her friends always use rollers, and I never liked the way their hair looked. The last thing I needed was to go back to school with stiff, tight curls, but I was in too deep. I had to trust her. I got back into the chair, and Sharon removed the rollers. Looking in the mirror, I felt that my worst nightmare had come true. I had big, stiff curls all over. Just as I was about to object, Sharon retrieved a brush and wrapped my hair around. How asinine, I thought. Why would she roll my hair only to brush it out? Maybe she messed up. This can't be good, I thought. I wished I had let the older lady do my hair, even though she was rude. After wrapping my hair in a circular pattern, Sharon covered it with cling wrap and told me to get back under the dryer. I'm not sure why, but I was both nervous and annoyed. My hair looked really bad on most days. Surely she couldn't have made it worse. Yet, I was still annoyed. Sharon retrieved a wide-toothed comb from a drawer and unwrapped my hair. It was beautiful. I had no idea that my hair was that long. After being fully unwrapped, it was shoulder length and it was bouncy, really bouncy. I hadn't ever seen my hair look that way, and I couldn't stop touching it. Sharon gave me a paddle brush and showed me how to wrap my hair. Just as she was doing so, Ron walked in. He had a huge smile on his face. "Well, don't you look pretty?" he said. I smiled. Ron paid Sharon, and she told me what was needed to maintain the hairstyle. She gave me a comb and a paddle brush in the event that we couldn't make it to the store that day. I thanked her and gave her a huge hug. Although I was initially apprehensive about Sharon's skill set, the end result far exceeded my expectations. Ron and I went on our way. It was still early in the afternoon, and I wondered if I would have to power clean the house upon our return. It had been such an amazing day, but I couldn't assume that the trend would continue upon our return. We stopped at a beauty supply store to retrieve the items that Sharon suggested. Ron was very helpful, and he expressed a genuine desire to make sure that I had exactly what was needed. I experienced a strange assortment of emotions. I straddled the fence. During the course of that day, I went back and forth between seeing Ron as a boyfriend and seeing him as a parental figure. It was all very strange. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Shenny Tells a Story on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in purchasing books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for helping me to create the world that I want to see. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Shine, little girl.